They called it community enforcement, like they were superheroes instead of two grown men in fake badges smashing my wife's brand new Rolls-Royce at 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning. You ever hear the sound of $180,000 worth of British engineering shatter? It doesn't just break, it echoes. That first crack of glass ripped through Willowbrook Heights like a gunshot, bounced off manicured lawns and designer mailboxes, and landed right in my chest. And there she was, Delilah Thornwick, HOA president, self-appointed queen of suburban order, standing in our driveway in pearls and a power stance, filming the whole thing like she was directing a low-budget crime documentary. Luxury vehicle violation, she announced to her phone camera, while her nephew Jake swung a crowbar like he'd just graduated from YouTube Police Academy. HOA security has authority to remove non-compliant vehicles. Yeah, that happened. Let me back up a sec. 24 hours earlier, my wife Elena and I were on top of the world. We just moved into Willowbrook Heights, one of those Colorado communities where the grass looks photoshopped and even the squirrels seem financially stable. I'm Marcus, former Army logistics guy turned contractor, specializing in retrofitting homes for disabled veterans. Honest work. The kind you can sleep on. Elena, 15 years on the force. Night shifts, domestic violence calls, narcotics busts, the whole grind. 15 years of proving herself in a department that treated female officers like temporary experiments. And yesterday morning, the county commissioners called her in and dropped the bombshell. She'd just become the first female police chief in county history. You should have seen her smile. I've seen her take down armed suspects with less intensity. We're buying it, she said, grinning like a kid on Christmas. The Rolls. We earned this, Marcus. And damn it, we had. So that night, we stood in our new driveway, admiring that silver Cullinan gleaming under the streetlight like a spaceship parked in suburbia. Pine from the Rockies mixed with new leather scent. Elena ran her hand along the hood and whispered, "From that crappy apartment to this, from beat cop to chief. We belong here." Across the street, I noticed heels clicking on pavement. Delilah Thornwick, 7-year HOA president. Former real estate agent, license mysteriously revoked, though no one ever said why out loud. She stared at our car like it had personally insulted her ancestors. And apparently it had. Because the next morning, I stepped outside for coffee and found a citation slapped on our windshield. Luxury vehicle display violation. Code 47B. Code 47B didn't exist. I checked every page of the HOA docs while my coffee went cold in my hand. The only vehicle rule? Keep it reasonably clean. Then I heard diesel. Delilah came marching up our driveway with Jake and 2 other guys wearing shirts that read Willowbrook Heights Community Safety Division. Printed in Comic Sans, I swear. She declared an emergency removal. I tried to keep it civil. "Ma'am, this is private property. Community safety supersedes property rights," she snapped. When Jake couldn't get the locked vehicle onto the tow truck, Delilah's face turned nuclear red. "Break the window. Emergency access protocol." And that's when the crowbar came out. The first swing cracked it. The second one shattered it. Elena walked out at 6:47 a.m. sharp in full dress uniform, badge polished, boots gleaming, ready for her swearing-in ceremony. Instead, she found her dream car looking like it had survived a Viking raid. The crunch of glass under her boots was the only sound for a second. "What the hell happened to my car?" Her voice had that cop authority, the kind that makes grown men confess to jaywalking. Delilah puffed up. Community standards enforcement. Elena didn't yell, didn't flash her badge, didn't threaten arrest. She pulled out her phone and hit record. "For insurance purposes," she said calmly. "Please repeat your legal authority to break my window." Jake shifted. Delilah doubled down. Community Association Act Section 47. Emergency Powers Clause. We can remove violations by any means necessary. And Code 47B? Elena asked softly. "I wrote that code myself," Delilah said proudly. "To protect property values." There it was. Confession on camera. But here's the twist Delilah didn't see coming, and this is where it gets almost poetic. Elena had studied Colorado HOA law back in college, when she considered specializing in property crimes. She knew boards can fine you for actual written violations. That's it. No breaking in. No fake police. No crowbars at dawn. Instead of arresting them on the spot, Elena let her talk. Delilah bragged about removing families. About filing liens. About not showing weakness. She practically built her own indictment. And then Elena dropped the first quiet bomb. I'll make sure to include this in my report. What report? Delilah asked. The police report, Elena replied. For felony vandalism. Jake started sweating. By noon, things escalated. Delilah retaliated with 12 new fake violations across the neighborhood. $150 fines for unauthorized surveillance. Aggressive lawn ornament positioning. I'm not making that up. That's when the real twist hit. Mrs. Patterson, sweet 67-year-old widow across the street, texted me. I recorded everything. 23 minutes of HD footage. Turns out Delilah had forced her to destroy her late husband's memorial garden 3 years ago. Mrs. Patterson had been waiting. Then Harold Kowalski, retired union organizer down the block, invited me over for coffee and what he called community intelligence gathering. Betty, his wife, laid out 7 years of financial records like a forensic accountant on a crime show. $127,000 in collected fines. Most for violations that existed only in Delilah's imagination. And then we found the nuclear device. Betty had checked the Colorado Secretary of State database. Willowbrook Heights HOA didn't exist. The developer had never filed final incorporation paperwork. For 7 years, Delilah had been running a completely fake HOA. Collecting money. Filing threats. Terrorizing elderly families. Fraud over $20,000 in Colorado. Automatic felony territory. That night, Elena came home from her swearing-in ceremony still glowing, until she saw Betty's evidence spread across our dining table. Holy hell, she whispered. This isn't HOA overreach. This is racketeering. The next 48 hours were controlled demolition. Delilah panicked. Issued a mandatory meeting with $500 fines for non-attendance. Threatened elderly families with foreclosure. Jake attempted to place Mrs. Patterson under citizen's arrest and ended up getting himself charged with false imprisonment. And then Delilah made her fatal mistake. At 2 a.m., she and her remaining fake officers tried to break into Mrs. Patterson's house to steal documentation. Cloud security cameras captured everything. At 2:47 a.m., Elena got the call. By 3:15 a.m., Delilah Thornwick was in handcuffs on her own lawn, still screaming about emergency HOA powers. Elena Ramirez, my wife said calmly, badge glinting under patrol lights. You're under arrest for breaking and entering, attempted burglary, conspiracy, and theft by deception. Delilah kept shouting about corruption. Elena just smiled. You're also looking at federal racketeering charges. The mandatory HOA meeting the next evening? Packed. 78 households. Harold presented the Secretary of State search results on a projector. 0 results. Betty displayed financial charts. $127,000 siphoned through intimidation. Elena stood at the front and said the words that made the room go dead silent. Willowbrook Heights HOA has never legally existed. Gasps. Then anger. Then something else. Relief. 6 months later, Delilah pled guilty to racketeering, theft, and elder abuse. 18 months in federal prison. Asset forfeiture returned $143,000 to residents with interest. Jake got probation and community service. Tyler and Rick faded back into whatever dimension produces Comic Sans security shirts. Mrs. Patterson rebuilt her memorial garden. The Rodriguez family reinstalled their daughter's wheelchair ramp and won a civil settlement. And that Rolls-Royce? Insurance covered it. Restitution finished the job. A replacement now sits in our driveway, untouched, unchallenged, sparkling in the Colorado sun. Sometimes Elena and I sit on the porch with coffee, watching kids ride bikes down streets where fake security once measured grass height. You know what the wild part is? Delilah thought she was above the law because no one had challenged her. All it took was one moment, one crowbar swing, against the wrong family. So let me ask you something. If someone shows up in your life waving fake authority, would you push back? Or would you pay the fine and keep your head down? Because sometimes justice doesn't come from smashing back. Sometimes it comes from letting someone talk long enough to bury themselves. Drop your thoughts below. Where's the line between community standards and straight-up tyranny? Have you ever dealt with an HOA that went too far? And if you enjoyed this one, stick around. Because trust me, suburban America has more villains than people realize.